she's going to shift the drawing, so she brought some extra paper. So it seems pretty exciting next door, doesn't it?
It's like karaoke.
So please, ask me some questions.
Yes. I follow Takada Sensei on Twitter, and I've seen that it says that she's a character designer and also jewelry designer. So I was curious about that and about if she works in other media besides just illustration, like if she has other interests as far as art goes, like that.
Okay. So let me repeat the question first so that everybody can hear it. And the question is, she follows Ms. Takada on Twitter and has read that she's not only an illustrator, but she also is a character designer, but she's also a jewelry designer. And so she'd like to hear a little about that, and if she has any other particular interests in the art world. Is that?
Yeah.
All right. So recently she's started Japanese sumie ink work.
Oh.
So I am Japanese after all, so I figured, it's about time I start to try to look at more Japanese style painting techniques. And so here it is, just so you can see an example. And I gotta at least approach it from the look first before I can refine my skill. But. So I've even made a special stamp with my name on it that's specially designed to work with this particular type of ink. So I'm getting prepared. So jewelry kind of started as a hobby for me, and I did sell some things in the beginning, but more it's now I'll do some exhibitions, some just gallery displays, and I'll sell a few pieces there. But to be honest, it's when it takes a lot of time, so it's not a big way to put food on my table. So I do continue with illustration. So, ultimately I'd like to find some way to be able to maybe sell some of my creations, maybe online, but for the time being, I don't see that happening in the near future. So this ring I'm showing, and the cat on the necklace.
Cute.
So my recent displays really are making things like tiaras, one-off items, not really meant to be sold, but really meant for displaying as art.
Nice.
So as far as like somebody having ever worn one of the tiaras I made, I designed and made, well, does everybody know the manga artist named Masami Yuki? He did Pat Labor, Grooming Up, and others, right? So his manager got married, and I lent her the tiara I made for her wedding.
Aww.
So his editor, not manager, but his editor at Shogakukan.
Of course.
Starting to look like Lam.
Yeah.
Do you have another question? Okay, I saw your hand up. Okay. The question is, out of all of the characters you have designed, which character are you most proud of? So, you know, it's very unfortunate that it never made broadcast in the United States, but even today in Japan, and it's very popular. It's a show called Creamy Mami.
Yay!
Even today, even though it's not being broadcast today, the merchandise around that show sells as much about as a show that's currently running. It's that popular in Japan.
More of that.
Oh, sorry.
So, you know, because it was rebroadcast numerous times across many, many years, when there are autograph sessions or signings in Japan for this show, some of the youngest people are about 6 years old, and some of the oldest are about 45. So, you know, it's interesting because sometimes when the younger kids come, it's because their parents were fans. I think that's good
sweet.
education for them. All right, we'll go with you. Behind you, yes.
I was hoping to know what is her opinion on, her opinion on Hirohiko Araki's work in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and who inspires her.
You said Hirohiko
Hiko Araki.
Araki in JoJo,
Yeah.
the manga,
Correct.
and
And who inspires her as well.
okay. So, what's her thoughts? How does she like
Yeah, exactly.
that work?
If she does, what is
Okay.
what's her opinions on it?
And about him or on the work?
Okay, I'm sorry, on the work itself.
Okay, and then the second part of your question.
Who inspires her?
Okay. So just to repeat again, can you share your thoughts on your feelings on the manga JoJo written by Hirohiko Araki? Illustrator, sorry. And who are you inspired by? So I'm terribly sorry, but I actually haven't read that manga. So there's one person that I could think of off the top of my head from Czechoslovakia. He's an illustrator by the name of Alphonse Musha. Did I say that right? It's like someone you should know.
Yes. I love that illustrator. That's awesome. Yeah, he does that art novel style. So pretty.
少女漫画少年漫画を見て育ちました。
So I was raised on works by Tezuka Osamu, like the Mighty Atom, Tetsuato, and also works by Ishinomori. And so obviously I think they're both great artists and very influential, and I think they've influenced me somewhat as well. But from an artistic point of view, to be honest with you, I was raised more on watching shonen style, boy style manga than I was girl style manga. Shoujo manga was not something I paid too much attention to. So I started reading shoujo manga when the illustrator Hagiomoto debuted.
That makes sense.
So personally, and on the whole concept of who am I inspired by, I think even more than a who, I love visiting art exhibitions and galleries and museums, and I think the feelings I get and the atmosphere when I go there and see these things, I think the combined experience is really what has kind of shaped me as an artist. All right.
旅行したり美味しいものを食べたりするのも
But to be honest with you, I also like eating really good food, so that inspires me too. All right.
Can you ask her what does she usually like to do without drawing on her leisure day? Does she have no project except going to museum? I know she likes to drink alcohol, but sometimes is it the Japanese or the European? Because she traveled to Europe before. I'm just really curious.
All right. So. That was a mouthful, but let me see if I can recap it, okay? So I'd like to know what Takada Sensei does on her free time, other than drawing, other than visiting museums. I've heard that she enjoys to partake in adult beverages. And I've heard that she's been over to Europe. And I'm not sure, does she like Japanese alcohol? Does she like European alcohol? What is it that you like to do in your free time? So to answer the question that's probably on everybody's minds is, I like all alcohol. But more than the alcohol, I like the atmosphere of sharing a drink with friends and enjoying the moment. So for me, it's more about pairing whatever it is I want to drink with the right food. I like Japanese sake. I like European wines. I like it all, but I like the activity and the feeling you get from sharing with friends the most.
お酒だけ飲むってことは全然ないですね。
I never really drink alone or just drink for the purpose of drinking. There's always some other activity.
だから太るんです。ちょっとしちゃう。
But I do have a lot of activities, so
あと余暇に何ですか？一番好きなのは寝ること。
so I gotta be honest with you, my favorite thing to do is to sleep. Who likes to sleep? I know I like to sleep. Yeah.
Yay!
Sleep is
Sleep is best.
私はすごい続けて寝てたんですよ。10時間ぐらい。猫を飼ってから全然その眠りが浅いので起こしに来るじゃん。猫が。
I used to be able to sleep like 10, 12 hours straight. Then I started keeping a cat. Yeah, that ended. Cat likes to come and wake me up frequently.
私の相手をしろ。私に餌を出すんです。
Play with me, feed me, play with me, feed me.
猫を20年飼ってたので、その死んじゃった時にはやっぱりかなり辛くて、やっぱりその後飼ってないですね。
So when my cat passed after 20 years, it
Wow.
was a really tough moment for me, really hard to deal with. And I haven't been able to start keeping a pet since then. So obviously she's using a hairdryer right now to speed up the process of drying the watercolors. I can't see really well from here. Is the color showing up for y'all on the screen?
Yeah.
Bring up another one of these. Switch it out. I better start with yellow.
このタイプのXっていうのは日本にないかというとちょっと検証します。全部チューブが大きいで、このサイズです。日本でなかったんですけど、こっちでも廃盤になってる。
All right, so I'm going to add a little bit here at her request. But so she was talking about these paint jars and how these Liquitex, the shape of these bottles. In Japan, they're all tubes. They don't have bottles, so it's a little bit different for her. But I mean, the paint's the same. However, you might be wondering, well, in Japan, if they don't have these bottles, then why do you have them? And it's because she spent a lot of time packing, and when she got to the hotel and she unpacked, she realized that she forgot all of her paints.
Oh.
I thought I had all the preparations completely done. I spent so much time on it.
Oh.
つまり日本からアメリカに来ると最初の1日が着いた時で時間的に最初の1日なんて37時間ぐらいです
So, just the time zone difference and the air flight difference. The first day I came from Japan, my day really lasted about 37 hours.
Whoa. That's rough.
And if that wasn't bad enough, I had to pull an all-nighter before I left. So
Oh
add
no.
that onto the equation. So I was probably awake for about 50 continuous hours when I was packing. So I was having a hard time actually focusing on what wardrobe to bring. So when I thought I finally had everything packed, I looked at the clock and I go, oh my gosh, I'm departing in like a little over an hour.
で今寝たら絶対に起きられないと思ったの。
And so I thought, if I took a small nap right now, I'd miss the trip.
なので朝すごい早い時間だけど起きてる友達もちょっと無駄話をして時間を過ごしてこの時間に起きてる友達がいる仕事でよかったと思います。
So, it was the middle of the night because I had to leave early. It was the middle of the night. And so, I didn't want to fall asleep, but it's the middle of the night. But, in this industry, there's a lot of people that don't necessarily sleep regular hours. And so I was able to reach out and I found a friend that was still also awake at these hours. So we just started talking, and I've never felt as good to work in an industry like this.
たわいのない話しかしなかった。
I can't even remember really what we talked about. It was absolutely nothing important. It was just having something to talk about.
だからね、話したんだけど、本当に覚えてない。
So I really can't even, it's scary. I can't even remember.
多分オリンピックの話だと思う。
But probably about the Olympics.
大変ですよね。オリンピックも一発勝負だから、これも一発勝負なんで、私はそういうので緊張しちゃうんだ。
So she's saying that, the Olympics is a pretty tough sport, right? Because you only get really one chance to do it right, to execute flawlessly. Kind of like me right now on stage.
普段はこっそりやる仕事、できる仕事ってやっぱり良かったよね。
So, this makes me feel even better that normally I get to work alone in private in my house, not with people looking.
平野さんがラム役のいつもやってることだと元気ですよね、全然とか言われて、もうすごいプレッシャーかけられて大変なんだよ。
So Fumi Hirano, the voice of Lum, was speaking to her earlier and said, oh, don't worry, you draw all the time. It'll be no problem, just like every day. Don't worry, no problem. Because you can't imagine the pressure that gave me.
Aww.
I think maybe she was trying to jab me a little. I think several of you that came to the talk event on the Discover Urusei Yatsura panel yesterday heard when I discussed about how I was the one to decide on Lum's hair color.
その時の単行本の表紙ではいろんな色を使ってあったんで、その中から選ぼうと思ったんですけど、やっぱり黒と黄色っていうのはもうそこだけはもう決まってるんで、それに合わせて決めてきました。
And so, at the time, I was looking at the covers for the manga that were out, and I was thinking originally to try to pick a color from one of the ones that were used. But yellow and black were already predetermined. Those were set. And so I really had to think, you know, what would really work best or would be most elegant with the black and yellow. And that's where I ended up on this particular shade of, or tint of blue green. So does anybody else have another question? All right, saw your hand shot.
I was just curious if it might be too broad of a question, but I was wondering if you might just have just some general advice for aspiring illustrators, just artists in general as well, to get into the same industry, from your personal experience in the industry.
漫画のように漫画を勉強しても、その真似は真似でいいんですけれども、自分のものをやっぱり得るためには、それ以外のものもいっぱい見て、自分の中をリッチにする。好きなものとか、綺麗なものとか、そういうのでいっぱいにするといいと思うんです。だから漫画だけじゃないで、展覧会に行ったり、美味しいものを食べたり、何より私、絵で幸せになってほしいって言ったって思うので、自分自身も幸せでありたいですとか、漫画とかアニメとか、そういう以外の人たちに大事にして、
Eat delicious things. That's one thing she said. Great advice.
So I think there's a couple things. One is looking at manga and copying the pictures in manga is obviously a good skill to get better at imitating. And you can definitely learn some things there. But I think even more importantly is to focus on other things in life, not only from a drawing perspective, but also just from a living perspective. When I create works of art, I create them to hopefully instill a sense of pleasure and joy in the viewer. And I feel that it's incredibly important to also myself experience that type of pleasure and joy, especially when creating the works, but even in my everyday life. So my advice would be to try to experience as many different things that make you happy as possible. And don't just focus on copying, but you know, you want to fill yourself with more rich experiences, and I think from that it'll be a good influence.
Good advice.
Right. Yes, sir.
I was just curious, you've been in the industry for a very long time now. Like, what do you think of the evolution of anime and manga? Because it's been through some shifts, some trends have rise, some trends have fallen out. So what do you think of the industry? What do you think of how it's going? Any concerns or hope?
Would you, okay, so focus more on manga or focus more on illustrating or focus more on anime?
I guess let's do, whichever one she feels most comfortable in, knowledgeable, I guess.
Okay, so let me rephrase the question for everybody, just make sure I get it right here, is you're a veteran in the industry, and you've probably experienced lots of different types of progression in how manga or anime has been created and how it's evolved and shifted, and what do you think about how it's shifted and evolved? Is that
right?
Accurate representation? All right.
すやつらみたいにみんなで楽しめる作品がちょっとできてるんじゃないかな。
So I think one of the big changes that I've noticed over the years is it's getting more and more challenging to do original works. And what I mean by that is today, the producers and the companies that are sponsoring and creating the anime, they're very focused on not losing money. They're very focused on definitely ensuring a hit of some sort. And because of that, they're not willing to take a risk on creating something that doesn't already have some existing base. And so because of that, I think we're losing a little bit by missing out on so many of those new original stories that could potentially be made, brought to market. Also, I do think that it's also true that, you know, there aren't as many works today like Urusei Yatsura, for example, where so many people, so many different genres, or so many different layers of you know, teenagers, 30-something-year-olds, little kids, adults, where everybody can enjoy the story and the work. And things have become very, very specialized, very, very niche in nature. So I think things have become very, very specialized, and I kind of miss the fact that there are broader, more accepting or acceptable works by all sorts of people.
最初に入ったそのやっぱりタツノコプロなんで、私タツノコプロはアニメオリジナルの作品を作るスタジオでしたから当時やっぱりオリジナル志向っていうのは
Company that really focused mainly on original works. And perhaps because of that, even today, I think I have a mindset of focusing and really wanting to support original works for creativity. So normally, just so everybody knows, when I'm at home working on pieces, I don't use this method. You know, I'll paint one color, and then I'll go off and grab a snack downstairs. And then I'll come back and I'll do another color when it's dry, or maybe I'll take a nap.
Are we still doing questions?
Maybe.
So just looking at the time, we've got about another 10, maybe we can stretch it a couple more minutes. All right.
Were there any titles that, or franchises, or anything that she would have really liked to have worked on but didn't get a chance to?
Oh, okay. So the question is, are there any titles or franchises or works that she really had hoped to be able to work on but didn't get the opportunity to? So there's one work where I thought I did exceptionally great character designs on. Unfortunately, that work never saw the light of day.
Aww.
So I kind of feel a little bit of regret about that. So that particular piece was actually, it was going to be an adaptation for a manga, the ninja manga written by Yokoyama Mitsuteru. And actually, even in doing that, I was able to go to his home and meet him and have this conversation. And even today, when I have this conversation with other professionals in the industry, they all get jealous. He's the original artist behind Tetsujin 28.
Oh,
that's nice.
wow.
Kind of sucks that it never happened.
Yeah.
Next, yes.
I was curious, while she's been in Dallas, since she does like food and drink so much, where she's been in Dallas to eat that she really enjoyed. Like, what's been her favorite meal?
I like that as well.
So the question is, where in Dallas, since you've arrived in Dallas, have you been anywhere where you've had a good meal or where you enjoyed the food? Went out for Italian downtown here. It's walkable from here. It's called Porta di Roma. She really liked that. The wine was really good. But because it was really good, maybe I didn't stop when I should have. Is because I might have said a few things to another person who was there that I probably shouldn't have, and I felt guilty for it afterwards.
Aww.
So this is about complete. I'm thinking about just adding my signature and calling this finished. What do you think?
2.5D.
So I'll pick where I'm going to sign it after it dries.